last 35 years, Rise Life Services has helped veterans, the underprivileged, and individuals with special needs live independently in a supportive suburban group home setting. Now you can help by becoming an Elevations Club member. For as little as $1.60 a day, you can elevate the lives of some of our most deserving neighbors. Please call now at 631-727-6220 or visit riselifeservices.org and help today.
It's a better place since you came along.
Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. Today with us, Charles Evdos. He's the Executive Director of Rise Life Services, a charity that works with developmentally disabled people and those who suffer from mental health issues. Let's all welcome Charles Evdos. Charles, I want to start with your beginnings. I understand you originally worked for the Daily News and started as a copy boy. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like and how long you were with the Daily News?
Sure, Gene. Thank you for having me on your show. I started back in 1968 at the Daily News as a copy boy, working my way through college. Was in the right place at the right time, moved up to an editorial assistant. Journalism was not my strong field back then. And Chili Adam, who was the copy desk editor, taught me how to really write and edit. And I became a reporter. The TV magazine I used to do, the radio roundup, interviewed a number of stars. And when I was going to Pace College at the time to get my CPA and my master's, that was the goal. And once I got that, I started to move up the ladder at the Daily News. So it was an interesting career. I was there about 12 years.
Yes. Now, your background at the Daily News and then as an accountant or CPA, how did that help you with what you do right now for Rise Life Services?
Well, to be a good executive director, you have to read financial statements. You have to understand about business. Being at the Daily News taught me about marketing, networking, dealing with people, just basically, delving in with politicians and so forth. So it really gave me a good background on that part of it. I guess an executive director it's like a puzzle. There's various pieces that you have to have during your career. And I believe over the years, I've developed that ability to do that.
And now Rise Life Services, what do you do exactly?
Well, Rise Life Service started back in 1984. We have 32 sites located in Suffolk County, primarily in Riverhead. The 32 sites are group homes for individuals who have developmental disabilities and mental health issues. We have an outpatient clinic. We're opening an outpatient clinic, and we have a day program that really takes care of about 60 people per day, approximately. And we also have 2 food pantries. So we're expanding our services. We're looking to grow and diversify.
Yes, and the developmentally disabled and then people with mental health issues. This is a group of people that in many ways has been neglected and not enough focus has been put on this group of people. And tell me a little bit about home life for these people. These are individuals who have opted out of living at home with families and have decided to live in a group home. And how does that work exactly? What is a group home like? Well, what is the environment like?
Our population is a more severe type of population. Many individuals really can't stay at home. If you remember Willowbrook and Creedmoor and Pilgrim State, when they closed those facilities down, those are the type of individuals we have in our program. They require extensive care, and it really takes a lot on our staff to really provide them the services they need, whether it's medical, therapy, whatever it may be.
Yes, and places like Willowbrook were closed because, well, it was thought that they weren't doing the right kind of work for the population of people that they had in their facility. Now, how do you differ in terms of the work you do?
Well, if you think back to Willowbrook, they basically threw people into a big room, didn't shower them, they were naked. The conditions were terrible. Our homes are clean. They're as good as anybody's home, anybody's home out there. It's like living in their own home, and it gives them quality of life. They get to do things that you and I normally take for granted, and it's very important that they're treated that way, because otherwise it would be a difficult situation.
Well, no question, every individual needs to be treated with dignity and respect. And it's good to hear that your organization is doing a good job in this area. But I want to delve a little bit deeper. So if, say, I had a child with a developmental disability and I felt I couldn't have my child at home, what is the process of being admitted?
You would have to go through the state first. They have the process changed a couple of years back. It's called the front door process. They have different priorities, 1, 2, and 3. Priority 1 is the most severe, and they're really New York State is desperate to get those individuals housed. Many of those individuals are out of New York State, and New York State pays a fortune for the services to be out of state. So they want to get them back into the program. The problem we have today is we don't have enough beds. And unfortunately, the demand is great, and the upkeep has not been. The state has not done what they were supposed to do.
And so now you receive funding from the state and from other groups. Talk a little bit about that, because I know I've looked you up and you have a budget of about 15 million. And I understand you have about 300 inpatient residents. Talk a little bit about where your funding comes, because I know it's very expensive.
Most of our funding comes through New York State through OPWDD, which is Office of People with Mental Disabilities. We also have mental OMH, which is the Office of Mental Health, Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, self-pays, and we do a lot of we try to do a lot of fundraising to help pick up the shortfalls of the budget.
Which is very important, the fundraising for sure, and then all the reimbursements you're receiving. And now you really do a special service, and it's very important. And for the families watching who may want to learn more about your services and Rise Life Services, and how they might support you, or maybe even learn more about your programs, what is the website?
It's riselifeservices.org. And if you go to that site, it'll tell you where we can help you. And if we can't help you, we'll guide you to the right place, no question.
Yes. Now, one of the things that's so important when you run a charity, as you do, is your overhead. With a $15 million budget, I think it's very important to have low overhead. What is your overhead like?
Our overhead's about 14.5%, which is pretty good for industry standards. I think it's really good, in my opinion. The problem we have in this field, 80% of our budget is salaries, including fringe and stuff. So what happens is, unfortunately, you don't have much leeway to take care of the other bit, insurance, building, rent, whatever it may be. There's not much leeway there. So that's our biggest problem. Most private companies, the salary levels are only 50%, half that. So that's a big difference between the private and the not-for-profit sector in New York State, where 80% is a huge number.
Charles, how do we improve the lives of the direct care workers? How can we help?
The sad part is the direct care workers are only making about $14 to $15 an hour on Long Island. You can't live on $14 to $15 an hour on Long Island. New York State has to raise the threshold. New York State hasn't given a raise in 10 years, a COLA increase to these direct care workers. Last year, I believe, was the first time they gave a 2% increase. You mean to tell me, living on Long Island, you didn't get a raise for 10 years? You can survive on that salary? There's no way. It's sad. It's terrible. New York State is making a big mistake, and I think New York State has to do something about it. It's not right. One of our biggest goals is to build our endowment. The endowment is really going to be our future, because the investment dollars that are earned can go back into helping the salaries of the individuals, helping our programs, and making a better life for everybody. Uh, by having the fundraising events, we just started doing it. When I came on board about 4.5 years ago, we just started to do fundraising. And unfortunately, the coronavirus killed us last year because we had to cancel everything like everybody else. So that cost us about $200,000 in revenue. This year, we're going full blast. And my intention is to make up last year and this year. So that's what we're trying to do.
And what is your next fundraiser?
On May 5th, we're having the Fiesta event, which is on May 5th, which is Cinco de Mayo. It's going to be at Giorgio's from 6 to 10 o'clock. It features mariachi bands, Latino dancing, singing. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And where is Giorgio's? Is it?
It's in Baiting Hollow.
I'm sorry?
It's in Baiting Hollow. I'm sorry.
Okay. And is this going to be an indoor event or an outdoor?
It's going to be indoor and outdoor.
Yes. And how are you going to guard against COVID?
The individuals that come to this event either have to show they're vaccinated or they've been tested 3 days prior to the event, just as meeting New York standards. So we're going to have to do it. They're going to have to wear masks when they sit down at the table, just like at a restaurant. They can take off their mask, but when they get up, they're going to have to wear their masks. So there'll be social distancing and all that stuff too.
All very important, because the rollout of charity events in New York State really has not happened, meaning larger indoor events. And for our viewers who have just joined us, we are with Charles Evdos. He is the Executive Director of Rise Life Services, a charity that works with those suffering from developmental disabilities and mental health issues. What do you suggest, and how best to give love and help to the individuals who are, or the individual who might be homebound right now?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is contact OPWDD. They can help give you guidelines what to do. If individuals would like to contact our agency, we would be happy to. We have an intake department that could guide you on what needs to be done, where you need to go, what services are out there, and really the whole process. It's a tedious process. With the residential piece, it's time consuming. Unfortunately, there's a waiting list. Sometimes it could take 2 to 3 to 4 years to get an individual placed.
Yes. Now, what about volunteers? Do you have any positions for volunteers?
We're just getting into that. This field requires licensing. They have to meet certain standards. So a volunteer can't really work in the home. But for volunteers, like for our food pantry, that would be a perfect spot. We could use the help there. For our events, joining committees to help our other events that we do throughout the year is critical, no question. And we do have a number of volunteers, but we could definitely use more.
And how and why did you get involved in the food pantry business? I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but I'd like to hear in your words.
Well, it's really started in Riverhead, where the need was there. We saw that there was a need. We're right next to the Department of Social Service building. And we saw the problem, the number of people needing help. And we said, you know what, we have to do something. And our fundraising dollars that we don't get any funding from the state to do this. So it's really through fundraising. We work in conjunction with Long Island Harvest and Long Island Cares. And we get about probably 1,000 people a month that we provide this service, just in Riverhead. And we're opening up another facility in the Hampton Bays. We've opened it. And we hope to do another 1,000 people there once we get rolling.
Very noble and very important work during this pandemic. And as more and more people are vaccinated, and as we slowly lift out of this pandemic, still there are many problems with joblessness and also food insecurity. And so the fact that you are involved in providing food to people in the community through your food shelters is very important, I think. And I really want to thank you for getting involved in that work. Now, for people who live out of state, they're not New York City residents, New York State residents, can they apply for for a position at one of your residential facilities if needed?
That's tough to get. You have to get permission through New York State first. You have to become a resident. Once you become a resident, you can do that. Otherwise, New York State will not accept that individual.
And do people actually leave, say, the state of Connecticut or Massachusetts and move to New York to become residents so that they can go to one of your facilities?
Well, New York State and California probably have the best services for developmentally disabled in our country. And people, yeah, they do it quite a bit. They'll move from, New Jersey or Connecticut or Pennsylvania, and they will come to New York City or Long Island or New York State. So yes,
And
many do.
establish residency so that they could go to one of the residential facilities. So you must be doing a pretty good job. That's what that says to me. And I think it's very, very important that we care for all individuals in our country, for those with developmental disabilities. And Charles, what advice do you give, again, to families who may have a tough time coping? Where do they go for help, and how can they do more for members who might be in a tough situation, members of the family?
Well, if I had a child who had developmentally disabled, I would contact the local agency like myself. There's about 20 to 30 agencies on Long Island that provide the service. I would just Google one of these agencies that provide it, and each of them will be happy to help out, no question. We have a strong team on Long Island that really care and want to work together in collaboration to make our individuals' lives better, no question.
And talk about your future outpatient services, because there seems to be a trend with outpatient services becoming more and more important in our state and in the country.
Well, as you know, with the drug problems, the opioid prices, mental health issues, especially during this pandemic, have been astronomical. I mean, they're up 30% on Long Island. So there is a tremendous need. I think that's one of the areas where we could help pitch in, and my staff are really gearing up to get that going, no question.
Yes, and then what about doctors' services and therapy services in your residential treatment centers? Are they frequent enough, or do you find that your residents need more?
Well, what happens with a lot of our individuals, we let them make the choice of what doctor they want to see, just like you and I do. So they make we'll make the appointment for them. We'll drive them there. We'll stay with them. If they have to go to the hospital, we're required to have an individual stay with that person at the hospital. Even when they stay there for 7 days, that staff member or other staff fill in for those 7 days. So it's a costly procedure to do that, and keeping this, and then you have to fill the spot at the other site for an individual because that person's at the hospital. So it's interesting.
So you try to accommodate your residents, and if they don't like a doctor or feel that a psychiatrist is not really helping them, then you'll switch doctors for them.
Absolutely, they choose.
And that's very, very important. Now, what about during this whole pandemic? Did you have a big problem with COVID within your residential treatment facilities?
We were very lucky, I have to say. We didn't lose anybody to the pandemic. We had a cleaning service come in. As soon as a person was tested positive, that cleaning service would come in, sanitize the whole house. It probably cost me about $200,000 last year just to sanitize the homes. We would do it immediately we would call up and they would be there within 2 hours to sanitize the home. So I really truly believe that that piece was an important piece. With my business connections throughout Long Island and throughout the country, I was able to get the masks and gowns and face masks and whatever we required. We didn't have the problem that everybody else had, where they had to go running around getting masks and so forth. We had them in hand. And I also helped a lot of agencies get their product that they needed too. So that worked out really well for us anyway.
Charles, well, it sounds like your work is a labor of love. And to do this work, you have to be competent you also have to work hard and your heart has to be in it. And I want to thank you for all that you do. And I want to say to our audience that there is help for everyone in this country. And people like Charles Evdos, who runs Rise Life Services, is here for families who may have a member who is suffering from a developmental disability. And there is hope, and there is help available. And Charles, as we end this interview, what advice again to families and then to individuals do you give, especially during this pandemic?
Well, what's really important with the managed care coming down the pipeline, and the individuals we deal with are more severe than many others. And we really need parents to advocate, to tell New York State, hey guys, don't cut back, don't put mandates and don't reimburse. There have been so many added mandates over the last 3 or 4 years that my cost has gone up by $500,000. And it hurts a small agency like myself. What I would also tell the parents, spend the time with your child in the program, visit them. They need to see you also. We want them to go, we allow our individuals to go home with their parents. We really try to help them to have such a normal life because we want them to come back happy and we want them to enjoy the quality of life, no question. That's our goal.
And I love that advice. I think it's important for all families to show love to children and then children to show love to parents. And Charles, are there any other fundraising events you have planned for this year?
We have quite a few, considering we didn't have any last year. We're doing our first golf outing on September 10th. We're having, it's called Food Stop. It's going to be at the East Islip Marina at the Bayside Cafe, where we're going to have Strawberry Fields and a Beach Boys tribute band and other bands performing for about 4 or 5 hours. All the proceeds are going to go to our food pantry. So that's going to be a great event. 2 years ago when we had it, we had over 1,000 people attend, and we raised over $25,000, which was wonderful. The other big event, we do an event in Atlantic City every year, where Harris in Atlantic City donates much of the entertainment and food and rooms and so forth. And we have about 150 individuals go, where it's a great networking meeting. And that raises about another 25,000. So that's a big event that we plan. And we're looking at having on May 22nd, we're having a car show at Pindar Wineries. They're donating the site. We're working together. We're going to have about 150 cars at the site, antique cars, Jaguars, Porsches. There'll be music, there's food trucks. It'll be a lot of fun. So it's a great event. That's also our first event this year too. So they're keeping me busy.
They sure are. You have quite a few fundraising events. And do you have any events planned in the Hamptons?
At this time, no, unfortunately. But our goal is to hit the South Fork some more, no question.
Maybe in 2022, because your plate certainly is full with fundraising events. And I think that's very important because all charities need to do fundraising for sure.
I agree, Gina. And I don't call it fundraising. I really shouldn't call it fundraising. It's really friend raising. Over the years, I've developed many contacts, and it's really important to develop your relationships and working together to get the job done. And we're very fortunate that we have a lot of donors and individuals that care.
And that's key. When your donors are committed emotionally and believe in the work you do, well, it makes your work easier. It also makes the fundraising easier. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Jane, thank you too, very much. Thank you.
This concludes Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. Today, our guest, Charles Evdos. He is the Executive Director of Rise Life Services. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host, and I'll see you next week.